Hillary Clinton's recent interview with Politico, she had some accusations against Bernie Sanders that are unfair to say the least. Now, Hillary Clinton touts herself as a progressive Democrat, although her policies in the past, including her foreign policy and her refusal to regulate the big banks, make her seem as though she's not necessarily progressive at all. Now, during the Politico interview, she says that Bernie Sanders might not even really be a Democrat. Okay, Here's what she says. He's a relatively new Democrat. In fact, I'm not even sure he is one. He's running as one, so I don't know quite how to characterize him. Now, in his state, he is identified as an independent. That doesn't mean that he's not liberal. He's obviously very progressive based on his policies, which, by the way, he has illustrated for you and the American people in the hundreds of debates that you guys have had at this point, okay? Now, although he's the longest-serving independent in congressional history, he caucuses with the Democrats and has served on and chaired committees for the party. He also has made key progressive issues like economic inequality central to his campaign. Now, Hillary Clinton is not the only person who's accused him of not being a Democrat. Barbara Boxer, who's a Hillary supporter, has done the same. She tweeted a while ago that, on February 3rd to be exact, Hillary is a progressive every day. Bernie is a Democrat some days. I don't know why some days is in quotation marks.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, too. Okay, so I actually think that they're onto something, and it's quite ironic. Because what they're actually doing by mistake is revealing what the Democratic Party actually is. So the reason Bernie Sanders was an independent is, one, actually, in that region of the country, there's fierce independents, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. For example, Angus King is a senator from Maine, and he's an independent. He caucuses with the Democrats. So if he were to run for president, he would clearly run as a Democrat, but he values his independence. There's some parts of the country that are more like that. Montana is another place that's notorious for that kind of independence, which I think is a great thing. And part of the reason he's an independent, Bernie Sanders is, because he's more progressive than the Democratic Party. They seem to be kind of almost trying to imply, like, maybe Bernie's a Republican. Oh, come on. Okay, so no, but they didn't say that. They're implying it but not saying it. So, but what they've revealed is, and almost kind of proud of it, the Democratic Party isn't that liberal. We're not that progressive, right? And so if Bernie Sanders is an independent from Vermont and he's really liberal, and we keep telling you he's too liberal, Hillary Clinton, the whole campaign, unrealistic, unachievable, too liberal, I'm the moderate, I'm the pragmatic one, etc. So what they're telling you is the Democratic Party is part of the same establishment, and we're on Team D, they're on Team R, but we're all going in the same direction, and we're all playing the same game, we all take the same donor money, and Bernie's a rabble-rouser over there trying to change the system. You're goddamn right he is.
So I want to address something that Hillary's camp said a few weeks ago about Bernie and point to her very blatant hypocrisy in this interview, okay? Hillary Clinton and her camp refused to do a debate in New York because they were unhappy with Bernie Sanders' tone, okay? And when they would do these interviews talking about his tone, they would make it seem as though he was hitting below the belt. But was he ever hitting below the belt? Bernie Sanders only attacks Hillary Clinton on her policy and how her campaign gets funded, her political corruption to be specific, okay? They don't like that tone because it's true and it makes Hillary look bad. But when you're attacking Bernie Sanders as not being a Democrat, that's the kind of dirty politics that you're accusing your opponent of. And it's ridiculous because you're the one doing it. You are a dirty politician. When you hit below the belt like this, it turns a lot of people off, including millennial voters who aren't voting for you in the first place. They're not voting for you because they're turned off by your politics and your brand of so-called liberalism. This is not liberalism, okay? You are the antithesis of a liberal. On some social issues, sure, you're liberal when the polls indicate that it'll work in your favor. But other than that, you're not a liberal.
I looked into her Walmart career a little bit more. So she served on the board of Walmart for 5 years. Walmart's out of Arkansas. Her husband was the governor of Arkansas. People have brought up that criticism a lot, and I largely ignored it. I was like, look, they're going to play ball to some degree with the local businesses, and that's a giant business out of Arkansas. You want to create jobs in Arkansas. You want to support the businesses. As the governor and the governor's wife, you'd want to do that. But when you look into it a little bit more, it does get a little bit more damning than that, right? So she was on the board for 5 years, and there was a great article explaining what she did on the board and what she didn't do on the board. And then I was like, oh, right, of course. So Walmart is notorious for union busting. So at that same time, unions are trying to form at Walmart, and Walmart fires those employees and kills every one of those movements. Hillary's on the board. The board is above the CEO. They're the ones who make the decisions on the direction that the company's going to go. She never fights for the unions, okay? She goes along. Now, Walmart, again, crushes all the local mom and pop stores. Wait a minute, I thought we were creating jobs. Crushes those local businesses, small businesses in Arkansas, cost all those jobs. She never objects. She never objects on the board. The only thing she objected to was she did help Walmart get a little bit better on female issues. The executives were very male heavy, and I guess since it affected her, she's like, no, let's bring in more women, right? Oh, the people that are getting minimum wage and getting crushed as workers at Walmart? That doesn't affect me. Go ahead and crush away.
I mean, her current policies make it clear that she doesn't really care about the middle class and the working class anyway. I mean, when you start the discussion about a wage increase at $12 an hour as opposed to $15 an hour, it shows that you're not really genuine in fighting for a living wage, especially when in a lot of big cities like Los Angeles, like New York City, you need at least $15 an hour to survive, right? Look, talk is cheap and so are labels. I don't care if she's labeled Democrat. I don't care if she's labeled progressive. I don't care if she's labeled a socialist, right? All that really matters is what her record is and what she's currently fighting for today. And she is, again, the antithesis of a progressive.
So, final point here. The reason I brought up the Walmart story is because, so when you look at the totality of someone's career, you know, sometimes people say, oh, she was a Goldwater girl, and Goldwater was super conservative. I'm biased on that because I used to be a Republican when I was younger. So I say, oh, come on, that was 40 years ago. Give her a break on that. Come on, give her a break, right? But then when I looked at the Walmart story and I looked at the totality of her career, I'm not sure, other than on social issues, and often belatedly, as with gay marriage, all the way in 2013, she finally switches positions. On the core of economic issues, I don't know that she ever switched. So she's never really been a progressive on economic issues, never really cared about the unions, didn't mind the corporations running roughshod over them. In fact, sat on the boards of corporations, the corporation that ran roughshod over unions, Walmart, right? And when she was a senator, she helped the banks with the bankruptcy bill. She now says she would fight further regulation of the banks. She doesn't want to bring back Glass-Steagall, which prevents gambling with depositor money. And you look at her whole career and you go, oh my God, you keep saying, hey, a little bit of change, she'll give you a little bit of change. But on economic issues, she's not going to give you change in a progressive direction. On most of the issues, she says she can work with the Republicans in Congress. That's true. She'll work with them to give you change in a right-wing, pro-corporate position. So for her to say Bernie Sanders is not really a Democrat, height of irony.